Welcome to the Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. There's only one way to kick off this cold open.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with WideLeft.Football, excited to take my paternity leave.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Rob Brzezinski's about to run a draft. Has that ever gone really, really bad before?
What's happening? Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. The Wolves really said, we're going to fire you, but not until you go to Alabama, scout some day 3 running backs in 30-degree weather first. All right.
Skol! It's the Viking Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Viking Squad Show starts now.
What is up? Welcome to the Monday Viking Squad Show. Glad you're with us, still within the 72-hour statute of limitations, that this is still breaking news. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah fired on a Friday news dump. What's going on? We're going to react to it all today. What happens next? What's going to happen with Rob Brzezinski? Why? Why did it happen on the last day of January? We will figure it all out. We will also get to our safety position review, Luke Inman's prospect of the day, and talk about the position coaches that were hired, and that was totally buried by the biggest news of Kwesi's firing. On a show today that is brought to you by everybody's favorite Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. And we are streaming today on Locked On Vikings. Make sure you subscribe and find the audio free and available wherever you get your podcasts. It's the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network. This is where I start. If it was only about the drafting, if it was just about Kwesi, you're not good at drafting, it wouldn't have taken this long. Other stuff had to come out. There had to be more auditing, more conversations that went the wrong way. A groundswell. I'm not saying coup. I'm not saying coup. A groundswell of feedback that led to this decision.
When you say I'm not saying a coup, it invokes the possibility that there was a coup.
Don't think about pink elephant.
Who's saying coup? Not me. Not me.
It would be Sam
Those aren't
implying coup.
Right.
I may have, inceptioned the idea into your head, but it's not my idea. There was
Wouldn't be the first person to incept a coup idea in people's heads.
Oh God.
Luke Braun, you did the emergency show on Friday. What were your knee-jerk reactions on the Friday show?
I was pretty surprised because of the timing. And my first thought, and it's how I started my Monday Locked On today too, was like, if they did this on Black Monday, I think I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, okay, yeah. And they pointed at, hey, look at that first draft and how bad it went, and the trades and the now look at this QB situation. I'd be like, oh yeah, okay. But doing it on the Friday after the NFC Championship game, like, why now? This is wild. Like, the other teams that fired GMs have already hired their new guy. Like, they've gone through a whole process already. And now we're just getting involved here. So I remember just thinking, man, I really thought he was safe. So I was really, really, really surprised.
So did everyone else, apparently.
Yeah, I feel like the only two, because you're right, the timing is the thing here. Like, again, he gets fired on Black Monday. We all sit there, we justify, we go through the drafts and whatnot. But like the only two notable things I feel like that have happened kind of from a Vikings lens since the end of the season was you brought back Brian Flores and you watched Sam Darnold go to a Super Bowl. Now, again, even though Darnold, going to a Super Bowl, that adds a little bit more salt in the wound with, the quarterback circus fiasco that they botched. I think them bringing back Flores, if I had to pick one of the two, was probably more of a turning point, because it just sounds and feels like in turn they're saying, Flores, you get more defensive player control, meaning you get more kind of say with who, they bring in, whether that's free agency or the draft. You combine that with KOC last year too. If you're Kwesi, you're probably thinking, okay, so what am I even doing here? But I still get special teams room though. Thanks, guys. Like I could see how that would kind
Yeah.
of create some friction. And if you're the Wilfs, you probably already had him on a short leaf. Again, just given his body work with the draft the last 4 years. Again, the circus that we went through with the quarterback fiasco. I'm just trying to pick and sift through the information that we have. It feels like we're in the information collecting stage, and there's going to be stuff that I'm sure we'll never find out. But that is like the only thing that I can really kind of find that substantial or tangible enough to be like, well, maybe this is the domino that kind of pushed everything to go in the direction that they did so late again in the offseason process.
The Wilfs found out about the paternity leave. That had to be the
They
the
found
straw
out.
that
They
broke
found
the camel's
out.
Wait, he
back.
did what?
Yeah.
2 weeks?
It's weird because it happens on a Friday, and that means every reporter gets to drop like a long Saturday feature with just like a dump of everything that they know about Kwesi that maybe that was public or that wasn't public but gets to be now or whatever. And it all paints this picture of Kwesi as this like totally hapless, has no idea what he's doing. He has to ask everybody what to do, right? Hey, who do I draft? You got to tell me. And it turns out that the coaches are doing draft work for him and that he's not coming out of his office because he's locked in a spreadsheet or whatever. And it paints this picture of a guy that didn't make any of the decisions, which is funny because then that doesn't absolve anybody in the building of those decisions. Like if you screwed up the quarterback thing, you kind of implied that the guy you just fired had nothing to do with that, which is a good reason to fire your GM if he's like not, involved, if he's not like if the staff doesn't trust him to make those decisions and therefore is, pushing him to get whatever. But like, then that kind of means that like whatever went wrong is still here.
Yeah, no, it is really unusual because you end up with a lot of these competing narratives, which this is like another kind of element that's really funny here. So, before I get into my actual point, a tangent. The Wilfs really want to be the Rooneys. Like this is a desire that they've expressed to many people. I don't know if this is like publicly reported, but
I think
also
they've expressed it publicly before. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So they want to be the Rooneys. They want to be this like stable ownership that like is seen as a great organization. And on the surface, they do a lot of things really well that good owners should do. They invest a lot into the organization. They upgrade their facilities. They make sure they take care of their players. They're number one on the NFLPA report card. Like that's great, right? But like internally, it doesn't seem like they have the understanding that the Rooneys have historically had about how to run an organization. Now, I don't know about Art Rooney too. That Mike McCarthy hiring was like very unusual compared to some of the other hirings that they've made in the past with the Steelers. But the idea is that they want to do this. But one of the things about the Steelers is that they've done a really good job managing their own media. And by their own media, I don't mean the media content inside the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. I mean the beat that covers them. They do a very good, which is why as a journalist, I actually don't like reading a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers news because the Steelers have done a really good job managing that beat and controlling kind of how these narratives work out. And the fact that they wanted to look kind of deliberate, or at least that's what it seems like. They wanted to seem like they were taking a lot of time to make this decision. They, did a bunch of exit interviews at the end of the season. They, went over all of these reports, right? They're telling people that they spent a lot of time going over this decision, which is why the firing occurs 3 weeks after, not a week before, because it ends up resulting not in them looking deliberate, but allowing just anonymous staffers within the organization who have any media contacts at all to generate their own narratives and put them into the media instead of being able to control the narrative from the outflow, which leads to Luke's point, right? That you end up with contradicting, really kind of self-defeating stories about why Kwesi left. So like one group of staffers might want to like make it out. It's just the case that Kwesi has lost the mandate of leadership. He's lost his ability to kind of lead the organization. And we see evidence of that because the coaches are taking care of free agents and they're doing a lot more involved in the draft and stuff like that. They're making a lot of personnel decisions and other members of the front office are executing trades on Kwesi's behalf or rather instead of Kwesi, right? And so that's like one area where you could say, well, he's lost, his leadership capacity, so he should go. And that, I guess, kind of makes sense individually in isolation as a reason to let go of a guy. But there's this other contradicting, competing narrative that's going out from another group of staffers that essentially says, well, he was bad at his job, and then they identify all the things that a general manager has to do, whether it's free agency. I guess the 2025 free agency class wasn't as stellar as 22 or 24, which Jesus, okay. And that his drafts were really bad, and he had a really poor job managing kind of like contract, and all of those things. And it's like, well, hold on. I just learned that he wasn't in control. So why am I firing him for these reasons? And it's because there's no unified narrative coming out of the organization because they don't do a very good job of media management. And so now we've got all of this drama to deal with.
A really important detail on the articles that have come out about this from Kevin Seifert at ESPN, from The Athletic with Alec Lewis and Diana Rossini and so on. Whenever they talk about those transactions, like they like moving on from Sam Darnold or letting Daniel Jones walk, it's always worded as the Vikings did it. And kind of part of the argument is there's never really a point where you see the whole org wanted to do this and Kwesi was like, no, we're doing that. And then that didn't work out. Like you never see him take that control, which is part of the lost the mandate of leadership argument, but also is like the Vikings moved on from Sam Darnold implies that there was more than just the one guy involved with that needs their feet held to the fire over that mistake.
Here's a thought on the timeline. Is it possible that the Vikings wanted to hold off on making this move because of the importance of the Brian Flores negotiation? They didn't want to be a sinking ship. They wanted to remain a desirable place for him to be, and the appearances of a fired GM would have hurt that. And
no,
then
he doesn't like Kwesi.
Yeah, Seifert reported the opposite. That it mattered to Flores that like part of his hesitance, the reason his contract expired, which I think is a new report that came out of that ESPN article from Seifert, that Flores' contract really did lapse. He did become a real free agent for a moment. And the reason he allowed that to happen was because he was uncomfortable with the direction of the front office, which was a signal to the Wilfs that was like, oh, maybe we should go back and reconsider this. If Brian Flores is maybe considered not coming back because he doesn't believe in this guy, maybe we should think harder about it. And that's why it took so long. I think if they did it on Black Monday, that deal, it sounds like the implication is that deal would have got done a lot faster.
Yeah, which is
I like this. Go ahead, Arif. Then I've got
it's just one reason
highlight
that
one
I
of these
think
comments.
That the timing would suggest that actually Flores's re-signing probably had something to do with Kwesi's exit. And I'm not saying a condition of the contract is that Kwesi is out of there. I wouldn't think that anybody would be that explicit about their power politics or anything like that, right? But I do think that this doesn't happen if Flores doesn't come back, or like vice versa, right? So, yeah, I think that this suggests that as much. And Gold Sound says Seifert implies Flores hates him. He does more than imply. I don't know if the article was updated because my original reading of the article was that it was by inference and implication. But I read it right before publishing my piece, or I reread it just before publishing, and he outright says it. I don't know, again, if that's updated wording or anything like that. But it stated explicitly that he dislikes Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. So I think that this isn't about the perception of a sinking ship. I think it's about keeping Flores.
I think Taylor Georgopoulos' comment hits on something, Inman, that I want to get into a little bit. This is a hit for analytics from a GM who didn't seem very analytics driven. You want to believe that your organization has a clear direction that guides its decision making. I think Kwesi resisted so hard to be painted as the analytics GM. I don't think he loved the label. I think he fought against the label. And I think he fought so hard against the label that his direction was, I'm not going to be painted into a corner. I'm going to take all the inputs and I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to find these inefficiencies. And, sometimes I'm going to be in love with short contracts. Then I'm going to be in love with long contracts for old guys. Then I'm going to be in love with injured players. I don't care about age in the draft. I'm going to take the old guys that have played 5 years and are 27 years old. I didn't feel, Inman, like there was a guiding compass for Kwesi's decision-making at all times because he was trying to not be this thing that we said he was.
How about the competitive rebuild? That was the first thing we got. Like, wait, what is this called now? What are we doing? And we had, what do we have? A decade of Spielman too. We had consistency with Spielman year in and year out, whether you liked what Spielman did or not. Like, you knew what you were getting from him. Kwesi comes in and does the competitive rebuild. His first thing was we got to fix the team's salary cap. and refresh the roster. And certainly he did fix that salary cap. They had more money to play with. They cashed in, like Arif said, 2022 and 2024, great free agency classes. But when you talk about refreshing the roster, it just felt like I think that first draft really put them from a team building standpoint, roster management standpoint, in a big hole. They just didn't hit on any of those picks. And from there, it's just, okay, more pressure now in the next draft. Well, the next draft, you only had one first-round pick, and then that late third-round pick with Mekhi Blackmon. You only had 2 picks in the top 100. Not a lot of ammo to do a lot of damage there as well. It just felt like he couldn't really – the misfires, I guess, Sam, of that first draft really set the whole thing into a negative motion, and it felt like he just couldn't fill those 2 mandates of, again, fixing the salary cap was one thing with the competitive rebuild, which, again, to your point, Sam, was like, okay, it's usually either the Ryan Poles Bears thing, blow the whole thing up, start from, the bottom, fix the foundation again, or just keep running it back with a Kirk Cousins type of deal, right? But the salary cap was one thing. It just felt like he couldn't really ever refresh the roster, though, and that was his kind of biggest deficit, it felt like, as the years kept going on.
Yeah, I was a big Kwesi defender for a lot of this, because I felt like the free agency work in some ways offset the bad drafting. But I think it, like I said in the open, it's more than that. It's about the way decisions are being made. It's about the internal communication. It's about the chain of command. We don't know how KOC fit into all of this. I know he was part of the high-level decisions, but this feels very much like a choice that where the team is backing the coaches. They're backing Flores. They're backing KOC, and it comes at the expense of the chief decision maker. We talk about now going forward, Brzezinski in charge of the draft, and who replaces Kwesi in the big chair after that. That's next on the Squad Show. Brought to you today by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here. No better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it's always good to be right. This week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game live in the app right now. Drake May needs just 1 passing yard for the max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup, and if your pick hits, you can cash in. It's like 2 for the price of 1. Prize Picks is simple, super simple to use. Takes no time to get started. Choose between 2 and 6 player stat projections. Take more or less. Put together your entry in moments, and you've got yourself a possible winning ticket. With Prize Picks, you can tail or fade. The partners that have Prize Picks relationships, and I like the flex play where you can have 3 of 4, 4 of 5, and still cash. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And we're brought to you by Drip Drop. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal. You're 1 month into 2026. How's it going? Hopefully hydration is part of your new, refocusing on energy and mood. Plain water doesn't always cut it, especially if you're working long days, you're hitting the gym, you're trying to stay consistent. Drip Drop is doctor-developed, proven fast hydration. It's the mind and body working pretty well. Make it part of your daily routine. It can be a total game changer. It's not just for workouts. It's a daily use product, and the flavors are so good. Also, 0 sugar options, science-backed formula. It's trusted by medical professionals. It's trusted by firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams use it because it rehydrates you faster. Right now, Drip Drop's offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure you check out Luke Braun with the reaction show from Friday, and then all of his breakdowns of the big news and what happens next on Locked On Vikings. Make sure you subscribe to that. Okay, Brzezinski runs the draft, and then they hire. Hiring process comes after. Braun, do you like that? Do you like the way they've laid it out? And how much of a contender is Brzezinski to be the permanent GM?
I think he's a candidate. they'll interview plenty of other ones, but I think with his history in the organization, with control over more than just the finances, has some blemishes on it that he'll have to answer for and say, this is why what I've learned from that and why it won't happen again.
You talking about his time in the Triangle of Authority?
I am talking about his time in the Triangle of Authority. The first year of that, they decided that their quarterback would be Tavares Jackson. The last year of that, they decided their quarterback would be Christian Ponder. Not sure I want that guy in charge of this decision.
Who's to say whose fault that was? That's the beauty of the Triangle of Authority.
Well, that was the other guy, though.
And that might be the
something
beauty of this
wrong.
draft,
Yeah.
that I don't really know who is going to be in charge of when decisions like cross the line of the obvious delineation of responsibility. Like, we know Brzezinski will be in charge of contacting the agents and making the negotiating with their in-house players, negotiating with their free agents and stuff like that. And when it comes time to decide who on defense we're going to draft, it's probably going to be Flores' voice being the loudest, and Brzezinski will probably just like follow that directive best he can. And same with offense and Kevin O'Connell. But when it comes to, well, there's this receiver on the board that we really like, but if we trade down, we can get another pick, and there's still a couple of corners there that we like. And both coaches are advocating for all of these guys. And now Brzezinski is going to be navigating that for the first time. I am pretty uncomfortable with that. I don't have the highest hopes that they're going to be the most efficient organization possible there. But I get why they're doing the GM process when they're doing it. The draft is kind of like where the calendar year flips over for front offices. It kind of marks the end of one season and the beginning of the next. So they're trying to avoid the dynamic that gave them the 2022 draft, where a new GM was basically dealing with all of the old guys' scouts and half the work had been done before he arrived in the building. And then that draft was a disaster. I think they're just so spooked by that they're trying to avoid that situation, which I kind of get, but it is very reactive to the like immediate short term, what feels worst, which kind of feels like it is plagued the Vikings for the last year now.
Wasn't he in the thick of the Kevin Williams missed draft pick fiasco?
I don't know if he was in the organization.
He was in the
yet.
org. He was in the
was
org.
he by
VP?
2003?
Yep, 25 years. So I don't know how loud the voice was at that point. He would have been pretty new, but it's possible he was involved, maybe peripherally.
The reason I think so, I think for certain he'll be a candidate. The reason I don't think they'll ultimately end up going with him is, one, it very much seems like the Vikings want to go like in a different direction somehow, right? Which would not suggest someone who's currently in decision-making power. But two, has he ever taken an interview for a GM job anywhere? Like, I don't recall ever seeing a report that he was a candidate to be a GM. I would not be shocked if he is really comfortable with what his position is. He probably gets paid quite a bit, and that job security is incredible, right? And,
Yeah.
And what often happens is once you, like, this is not like coaching. Once you become a general manager and then you get fired, you don't usually like go back to a lower position in another football organization, right? Like sometimes, like Thomas Dimitroff, you end up like consulting for teams, right? But that's
Rick
like
Spielman,
fairly
you do videos for the 33rd team.
Yeah, and then you do like a podcast for a short period of time for CBS Sports, and then I guess Spielman, you got back with the Commander. But like generally speaking, once you hit general manager and then you're out, that's it. You're done with football. If you're a cap guy for 25 years, you might be a cap guy for another 25 years, right? like that's not bad job security. So it wouldn't shock me if actually he didn't want to be a GM. So far he's done an excellent job avoiding all accountability. What a wonderful gig that is.
Yeah, he went behind the GM's back to make a trade that was bad and is somehow catching no heat for it.
It got a promotion.
It's Adam Thielen trade with the Panthers, by the way. That's the story.
Yeah, if
from
you haven't
Matthew
read the Purple Insider piece from Matthew Collar, it starts with this anecdote. So this is even before the paywall. It starts. I don't even know if that piece is paywall. It starts with this anecdote that he goes behind Kwesi's back because of a lack of urgency from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to resolve the receiver problem. The receiver problem being you have a guy suspended for 3 games, right? Goes behind his back to execute a trade because Kwesi didn't like the price and or wasn't urgent enough to acquire Adam Thielen.
And was correct about that.
And they
And was
fired the
Jalen
guy
Naylor's
who was
hand
right.
was hurt too, by the way. Jalen Naylor had a hand thing we didn't know.
Oh,
about.
is it? Okay. Ooh.
Which ended up costing him 0 games.
Feels like this is a decent offseason. I'm not talking about the draft, but pre-draft. A decent one for a guy like Brzezinski because it's all about contract renegotiation. It's about squeezing a couple of free agents under the cap. This is kind of right in his wheelhouse, actually.
Yeah, that's his bread and butter, right? Like he is one of the most trusted, like Arif said, one of the most trusted kind of financial guys in the league. I remember when George Patton was starting to take interviews as well, people were like, oh, we can't lose Patton and Brzezinski. And obviously Brzezinski's ended up staying here, but he's definitely been on the front lines. I'm with Braun, like, you know, first of all, just the track record of when he had a little bit more say and pull in those draft rooms, I don't love. But he's been on the front lines. Like, he's been in the war room for over 25 years. So as far as like wheeling and dealing or relationships with other GMs, I guess I'm not too worried about that. But again, it's still, at the end of the day, you just have to draft better players. But also interesting too, as far as timing goes, it just feels like they kind of missed the first wave, even second wave of GMs, right? At this point, what's it going to cost you or hurt you to two? I think two. Was it 2?
Yeah.
I thought 2 or 3.
I think it's only been 2 general managers, and one of them is not even like a real general manager. So for people who don't know about like the way these, so Ian Cunningham was the assistant GM, I think, with the Bears, becomes the general manager of the Falcons, but that is not, according to the NFL, like a bona fide general manager position,
Sure.
which is why the Bears will not be receiving the draft picks you often get for being able to develop talent from people of color, because he doesn't have decision-making authority. It is Falcons' former quarterback, Matt Ryan.
Really?
Yeah, president of player personnel. So
Wow.
really only one GM is hired. That's John Eric Sullivan with the Miami Dolphins, the former assistant something or other with the Packers.
That's crazy
So-
because the Falcons didn't have to adhere to the Rooney rule for the Matt Ryan hiring. They just did it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Huh, interesting. Maybe the Fritz Pollard Alliance should do something about that.
Wow.
Let's get to something the commenters want to hear about, KOC's job status. Apparently, Braun, you said you think that the seat is hot for KOC. I don't tend to view it quite that way. I think that a choice has been made to support the head coach here. I think it's also possible, not guaranteed, but possible that if he was one of the voices that wanted Darnold back in the building, I think that if he was superseded on that, there's probably some absolving of that decision that doesn't fall on his shoulders. Now, the question is, does the new GM have firing power over the head coach, or is that always an ownership decision? And is that organization by organization? I don't know that. I don't know, like, because the GM coming in his first year, having a strong take on the head coach that's been here for 5 and is pretty well regarded, I don't think that puts KOC's seat that hot. I don't think it's cranked up all the way on the seat warmer.
I mean, this is a Luke take. I'll let him take it.
Yeah, well, my take is anytime you have this kind of upheaval, right, we are not happy with where things are going, right? Which means even though I forget the record over Kwesi's tenure, but it's like 47-20 something, like despite that, we're not happy with the direction of the org, right? And the idea is, okay, Kwesi's out. Now the problem is gone. Now we can all move forward. We're going to win a bunch of games and do really well. If JJ McCarthy like stinks and you're like 2-8, the like fingers are going to keep getting pointed. And now that guy's gone. You can't point fingers at that guy anymore. So where are they going to go next? They're going to go to the head coach. And my take is that I don't think that all the problems have gone away just by cutting this one guy. Seems like you had good reasons to do it, but the things that caused the Vikings to go belly up, a lot of those were staff decisions. The reason Daniel Jones left was because Kevin O'Connell was going to start JJ McCarthy over him kind of no matter what. And that or at least that's the sense Daniel Jones had. That was the reporting at the time, and it was reaffirmed a little bit in some of the articles that came out this weekend. So we still are kind of in a world where you need the quarterback position to play well. Either they acquire somebody who pops off, or JJ McCarthy takes another step and plays well, and that the team needs to be good. But I do feel like the seat is really hot. The ownership is not happy with the direction of the organization, and just a winning season doesn't seem like it's good enough to help that. They went 9-8. Go ahead and go 9-8 again. I think more heads roll. So yeah, I think it's just the reality of the situation. Yeah, the ownership has kind of chosen O'Connell over Kwesi. What's wild about this is not until the impromptu Friday video call from that Diana Rossini and Alec Lewis reported in The Athletic was O'Connell even really involved in these conversations. So it seems like ownership made the call and then kind of said, hey, Kevin, we're thinking about this at like the last minute. So I don't think that he's now going to be the Bill Belichick of the regime. No, a new GM is going to come in with his idea of the long-term direction of the franchise, and we're entering year 5 without a playoff win. I think the seat starts to warm up quite a bit, yeah.
That all makes sense. It's understandable. I'm curious if we have a track record of what happens when a GM is fired and a coach is not, and how long that coach has in that world, right? It's also, by the way, I just want to point this out. I didn't make space to make this point in my piece, but like it's also why syncing the GM and head coach contracts is meaningless. No one cares. Why do we ever talk about it? Like if it's their contracts expired at the same time, so they're paired together. No, who cares? The contracts are fake. They're meaningless. I don't care. So that aside, I do want to know what the history of coaches and fired GM is fired, and how long that coach lasts in that organization. Assuming, of course, that the coach, struggles a little bit. So I don't know but my sense is that it buys a little bit of time, right? Because you can pin your past mistakes on the guy who's gone, right? Like, JJ McCarthy's bad. Well, we already blamed the guy for that, so we don't got to blame it, dude. We just have to muddy through this, right? Like, I think that's what ends up happening is that, we have kind of pinned the blame somewhere else. And, what's great about these kinds of things is that if JJ McCarthy becomes a really good quarterback, which, I'm not going to speak to the odds of whatever that is. If he becomes a really good quarterback, that's just more evidence that the coach is so good that he turned this just awful piece of clay into this great, wonderful, tremendous quarterback. So it's kind of a win-win because now all of the bad decisions are kind of baked in the cake and accounted for, and you didn't bake the cake. You're good, right? Whether or not that's actually true, not important, not relevant, right? And we know it's probably not actually true. We know that because of the way the leagues are being organized. All of the good quarterback decisions were because of Kevin O'Connell, and all the bad ones were Kwesi. What are the odds of that? That doesn't seem likely at all.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that Kevin O'Connell is getting away with basically pinning the entire JJ McCarthy fiasco on Kwesi. Like, on the guy that, we remind you, had like no personnel control apparently in his own organization. But the one time everyone got strong-armed away and didn't want this was quarterback. When you have the quarterback guy in the coach's room. Yeah, I am not going to believe for a second that Kwesi was like, sorry, I know you want to keep Sam Darnold, but we're going with the rookie. No shot. You wanted
Drake May.
Snowflake's chance in hell that Kevin O'Connell didn't primarily drive that decision.
He said, go trade up. Go get me Drake May.
Yeah, the Drake May thing is so fascinating.
It is.
Because I don't know how much of this is reported. I don't know how much I can report, actually. But I hate
all of
when
it.
Reporters do that. I'm sorry. So they were going to organize a trade up for Drake May. They had, 2 first-round picks this year, a first-round pick next year. My understanding, I don't know. My understanding is that they had a deal in place, and the owner, Robert Kraft, vetoed it. That's my understanding.
I remember that reporting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What? Obviously,
great move by Kraft.
Great veto by the owner. But like, that is a tough one to blame on Kwesi. But at the same time, like, hold on, you traded all of that up,
yeah.
without knowing that deal could be done. You trade like the excess value of what ends up being the pair of Dallas Turner trades. The excess value of the 17th pick versus what they traded is the 5th overall pick. Like, that's crazy.
Ugh.
Like, the Vikings lost the 5th overall pick worth of value. Like, the 17 and 5th overall pick is what they gave up in terms of value, depending on the trade chart you use and, like, yeah, whatever, right? But, like, good God, what a loss. That's crazy that you would do that. Obviously, Dallas Turner's turning out to be, seems like a pretty decent player, but, like, Jesus, right? You could use the 5th overall pick probably next year, right? But yeah, it's such a mess how this all played out, and we're threading all of these kind of strands together from, like, hey, Drake May's in the Super Bowl, Sam Darnold's in the Super Bowl, Daniel Jones, the first half of the season before he got injured, kind of like a near MVP-ish season, right? And would have been relatively cheap. I think with the offer, Mike Silver reported the offer was like a little bit over $14 million. Holy crap! Getting that production for $14 million is outstanding work, right?
Yeah.
But, like, hey, Kwesi is also the one who, like, I shouldn't say let Kirk Cousins walk. That's how I put it in the piece. He didn't play hardball to get Kirk Cousins. Great move, right? He did get Sam Darnold. Great move, right? Like, wait, you didn't get credit for that? That feels weird. You didn't get credit for the 14-win Sam Darnold move?
Josh Dobbs?
He's the one that grabbed Josh Dobbs, which I think was a great move.
Come on.
Yeah.
They got way more value out of that.
We
than
can
they
give the
traded.
majority of that one to Kevin O'Connell. That was extraordinary.
Udinsky. Yeah. Okay.
No, for sure. But, like, what I'm
Brzezinski too,
saying
yeah.
is, if we're blaming him for quarterback failures, we should, like, unfairly credit him for quarterback successes.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I
Great
think
job
we've
with
been a
Nick
little
Mullins, dude.
selective in who we're praising, who we're diminishing. I do think we do need to be a little more consistent on that.
Oh my
But
God, Josh Dobbs is
obviously,
in the Super Bowl. That's a good point, Kazak.
in closing this segment very quickly, if anybody has a very strong opinion on who the next GM should be, I'd love to hear it. And also, I won't believe you. Like, if anyone claims to know anything about what these guys are doing in their organizations. Now, if you want to formulate a big George Payton take, go for it, because he's actually done the job. But if you're trying to tell me that John McKay or Terrence Gray is this great candidate, I have no basis to believe you for that opinion. So if anybody wants to have it, now that I've said that and scared you off, if anybody wants to
Yeah,
come out
now
with
go
a-
ahead.
No,
Well,
I
I
agree
think-
with you, Sam.
I
I
think
think
it was
I have
interesting
no
to
idea
me-
what these people are doing. I think people say John McKay because, look, the Rams are well run. Get somebody from there. But, like, who it is from the Rams, I feel like
It's just Rams all the way
it's
down, man.
yeah, it's just Rams all the way down. But, like, who it is from the Rams, I don't think people would really have that strong an opinion one way or another. I have no earthly idea who it's going to be. I don't think the Broncos are going to let George Payton just walk out the building.
No, this is a really interesting
In
one, 'cause
May?
Mike Sando
Yeah.
mentioned George Payton twice, right? Once in a tweet and once in, like, a podcast or some other audio production thing that he did, which is really fascinating to me. So he's got a year left on his contract. His extension is coming up soon. George Payton obviously has a history of the organization. He was, like, second in command to Rick Spielman. And the only reason that Payton would do this is because it seems as if he no longer has control over personnel in Denver. That is Sean Payton, a different Payton, right? And so he might be enticed to come back so that he can actually have control over personnel. Mind you, the personnel moves made before Sean Payton arrived, not wonderful, so not a great track record. But
Russ?
Yeah,
that would be
it's a big
that would be kind of
blemish.
it. Yeah. Which, I mean, what, did the Vikings need to make good moves at quarterback? Is that a concern that we have? But that would be probably the only reason that you would see that happening, is that he wants to be back in charge. Earn the bullets and slings himself, as opposed to if Sean Payton makes a bad move, he gets blamed. So he might want to, which sounds familiar. So he might, if he's guaranteed control. But the problem is, one of the theories that I have, and I feel like a couple of other people have, is that Brian Flores has defensive control and KOC has offensive control. Don't know what that means for the draft or how to protect free agents or how you do cap or whatever, right? But it seems as if they have a lot more influence over offense and defense than typically head coaches or coordinators do. So why would you leave an organization where you don't have control to go to an organization where you don't have control? I don't know.
Fair point. Let's get to Luke Inman's prospect of the day. Talk about coaching staff additions before the show is done. Squad show. Brought to you today by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there's got to be a better way to do this. And there is. Streamlining your communication is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O. The smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number. Nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread. Replies are fast, more personal, better connectivity. Smart AI tools also automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps. No bothersome transcripts you have to read. No surprise, Quo is the number one rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity, no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. We started with Mansur Delane. We moved to Caden McDonald, and now Luke Inman delivers his prospect of Hey.
There it is.
Let's
Thank
go.
you.
Let's go. Game time.
Thank you. Game time. Let's go to the interior offensive line. Let's go to center. Kind of a weird, not super deep, or like kind of obvious consensus center class. Yeah, it's still early, but like just right now, that's the vibes. At least at the top, you got Connor Lew from Auburn, kind of this consensus number one guy at the top, but he tears his ACL midway through the season last year. So, are you going to have to redshirt him? Does that push him down the draft? Is he still the first center to go? Time will tell with all that. But I think for me and my money, the next best option, maybe the kind of cleanest prospect after him, top to bottom, would be Jake Slaughter from Florida. Doesn't really have like this raw, super athletic, power people mover skills like Connor Lew, or think like a Tyler Lindenbaum, right, who came out of Iowa, went late first round to Baltimore all those years ago. But really high, nice floor, what he brings to the table, football IQ, balance, pad level, good strength, great technique, good pass blocker, very light on his feet. Both vertically and horizontally. I thought he picked up stunts really well last year, redirected a lot of blitzers super consistently last year as well. And, everything you hear about him, every teammate, every coach, how smart he is. That's the first thing to talk about. He literally, if you pull up a picture right now, just Google him. If you can find one with his glasses on, he looks like a 40-year-old accountant. Okay, with those glasses on.
This meets the logistics supply chain.
Thank you. Well, that's why I was chuckling before the show. You were talking about that. Leader on that offensive line, though, team captain, being able to do that in the SEC against other top tier, defensive tackle competition week in and week out, always noteworthy in my book. So checks a lot of boxes. Any team's going to want, I think, but for the Vikings specifically, I think he's a great fit for this zone blocking scheme. 81.7 zone blocking grade. 84 pass blocking grade this year, 36 games started under his belt. Last 2 years specifically, again, just kind of been this rock for the Gators right in the middle of their offensive line. 2 sacks allowed, over 1,500 snaps. And I think whether they bring back Ryan Kelly or not, which I think we probably are leaning they won't, but either way, just having Slaughter kind of waiting in the wings, or you move on from Kelly and you let Juergens and Slaughter kind of compete it out in camp. It's funny because I think that one thing that could potentially drop him just a little bit value-wise in the draft is that he's never played anything but center. We just don't know if he's got that guard flexibility or not. Arif, I don't know if he played any guard or even tackle, I guess, down at the Senior Bowl, but it feels like, just in general, the last like 4 or 5 years or so, a lot of teams are valuing the guys in the draft on the offensive line that can just line up in those multiple positions. But I think if you're the Vikings, who cares? You got your 2 guards the next 2-3 years with Fries and Jackson. You need a center. And I know, rolling with a rookie center isn't like ideal for JJ McCarthy and that kind of whole blueprint. But if you're going to draft one, of all the guys I've kind of dove into, he feels like the most plug and play guy, kind of the cleanest, highest floor center in the draft, top to bottom. Again, between the football IQ, reads and diagnoses at the line of scrimmage very well, very solid technique and leverage, probably in that, it's so early to tell, but probably in that 60 to 100 range. Again, because he's not this behemoth people mover, probably needs some more sand in the pants, so to speak, kind of guy. But you're just getting a really good football player here, a really solid pass pro. And again, I think fits that Vikings run scheme very well. So Jake Slaughter, Florida center. If they don't go sign a starter in free agency, which I haven't even looked at the centers in free agency, but I almost think you have to go draft one. If you don't sign one, you almost have to go draft one. And if you're going to draft one, you better draft one that you think has a real chance to be a starter, or at least contribute heavily his rookie year. So bang for the buck, I think Jake Slaughter is the guy that's really popping out right now at center for the Vikings.
There must always be a small center in Minnesota.
Yeah. Well.
Hard to knock the
we're
resume.
due, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
due.
Well, hey, I mean, Hall of Famer, Mick Tingelhoff. There's a long tradition.
Hey, yeah.
Well, I mean, what's Ryan Kelly size-wise? What is he, 6'5"?
It's like dead average for centers, if I remember.
I mean, yeah, I'm seeing 6'4", 303.
How big was Sully? Sully wasn't big, was he?
Yeah, I was gonna bring up
Huge.
John Sullivan because like his whole deal was that when he was hanging out in the Twin Cities with the rest of the offensive line, he just looked like a regular guy hanging out with like Phil Lodeholt and Brian McKinney.
6'4", 312, looking like a regular guy next to those two.
Yeah.
I love Jake Slaughter, if only because he looks kind of like one of my friends, AJ Schulte, who covers like the Rams for A2Z Sports. And so we've just like the entire Senior Bowl, we were just calling Jake Slaughter AJ the whole time. So great for me personally. I would love that.
Did he line up? Did you see him at all, or did you hear anybody?
I only
did he
saw
line
him line
up
up
anywhere?
at center.
Okay.
I only saw him line up at center. I didn't keep track of him the whole time, so he may have lined up at guard and I missed it.
Again,
but
that
I
may
did
be
personally
good
see
for
him
the
line up at center.
Vikings because, again, sure, you'll take the position flexibility if you can get it. Sure, why not? But like we need a center, and I just feel like some guys
flexibility is nice, but like first and foremost, you need a good player who plays well, right?
Well,
like
exactly, and you always get these guys like a Greg Zabel last year, the guy from Duke that Tampa drafted a couple years ago. These guys that go to Mobile end up looking solid at like 4 of the 5 positions, and end up their draft stock ends up getting boosted way higher than we thought going in.
That guy ruled.
Yeah, Ellie Marpet. Yep. So I just think, Slaughter not playing multiple positions down in Mobile, even though that's usually the time coaches want to kind of, fool around a little bit and slide guys around. Not the worst thing in the world for the Vikings specifically, I think.
Cool. I'm into that. So we've addressed the center, we've addressed the DT, we've addressed the cornerback. Very good work, Luke Inman. Looking forward to the next one. Let's review. I want to do 2 things in the final segment. We're going to review the safety spot. And also, if you have any hot takes on the new position coaches, we get to all that in the final 15 minutes. Brought to you today by Game Time. Nothing like being at the arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, not always been the simplest. If you haven't had Game Time, it's the go-to app now for scoring tickets fast. No hassle. Puts the advantage back with you, the fan. You pull up the app, pick an upcoming NBA game. Should I do it in real time here? Or maybe I should do the Wild game tonight because they're in town. So you can act on this literally today, right now, as we're speaking. Going to pull it up. There's the Wild game. Get in the door for $43 tonight to see the Canadiens and the Wild. That's a puck drop 6:30 Central, a little bit earlier. Make sure you're in your seat for $43. That's a pretty good price to see the second best team in the NHL. Great last-minute ticket options. If you want to wait until 6:08 tonight and get that ticket, you can do that. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA or NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. The Minnesota Vikings season in review continues at safety. Let's start with odds of Harrison Smith's return. Give me a number. Go around the horn. Spinny?
33.
1 and 3.
3 doors.
20.
Pick the right door, man. 3 doors.
3 doors down. All right.
33%.
Popular.
Yeah,
I was thinking like a bet. I was like, what, minus 33? What, plus 30? That was a weird
Yeah, how do
line.
we...
Just numbers, dude. Just picking numbers.
I'm gonna go with 10%.
Mine was 20.
I'm gonna go with I think I'm just gonna go with the refund 10. That feels right.
Well, Braun, you think the Vikings don't want him back, right? Like you think they would be cool if he didn't come back.
No, not necessarily. I was just saying if he does come back, his contract voids on March 13th, so you have to fix that first. So you have to do an active move to bring him back. Beyond just Harrison Smith deciding he wants to come back, and that all needs to resolve by March 13th. But I don't know. We all saw how that send-off was in that last game. The timeout to honor Harrison Smith and all that. That felt very final to me.
Yeah, guys get bored though. They go to the cabin. I took up frisbee golf this. It was fine. Yeah, it was good. And I'm telling you, dude, they get the
Which
itch,
comedian
dude.
are you imitating? Because it's so familiar what you're doing right now.
Wait for the book, dude. Wait for the title.
I think he's just cooking.
Yeah. But no, Harrison Smith has hobbies. That's like the one thing that like makes me so sure about this. He super just has it. He flies planes, man.
Yeah.
Like he's got plans.
He's
for
like
what
the
he's
coolest
gonna do
man alive.
Yeah.
I know, right? He's got plans for what he's gonna do after all of this. So, like I assume he also hunts and fishes, but like he does stuff. He just doesn't tell anyone about it because that's like not his. He was like, why would I tell you about the time I fly planes?
Yeah, I flew a plane. It's not a big deal.
You know what today is? I'll give Macho the breaking news sounder on this one.
Yeah, there you go.
Harrison Smith's birthday today. 37 years of age. Why?
Hooray.
What?
I said hooray. Yeah, good for him.
Happy birthday. Harrison
7.
Smith.
He's now in his late 30s. He's moved out of the mid 30s, now in his late 30s. Does that change the equation? I think the Vikings have.
Just the birthday that we always.
Wait a minute. Let's start the conversation over now. Now that we know that.
Okay, now that the information is clear. Yesterday he was a mid 30s safety.
33%.
Now he's a late 30s
3%.
safety. I would take him back. You've got Theo Jackson, Josh Metellus, and Jay Ward as your safety room. I'm very intrigued by Jay Ward, and that's based on 3 games. But I'm intrigued in what Jay Ward could be. Maybe next to Josh Metellus as your 2 safeties. Here's one interesting stat from the year. Tell me what this means to you. The Vikings blitzed, or they had exactly half the number of pass rush snaps from safeties this year than the year prior. What does that mean?
It means they put fewer safeties on the field, Sam. Come on.
A little more Fabian Moreau action.
Yeah.
Fabian Moreau barely
like,
played. I don't
Jeff
believe
Okuda
you have to do better than that.
But like they were like a 3 safety team in 2024. They were like a 2.5 safety team in 2025 because Theo Jackson was not good enough at football to put out on the field. And so you can have Josh Metellus blitz as often. So the Vikings obviously still blitzed a lot, but like they're coming from like linebackers who were on the field when they might have been off the field, or cornerbacks who were on the field when they would have been off the field, stuff like that. So it doesn't mean that much. I think it's more a personnel thing than it is like a strategic thing. Obviously, not having Harrison Smith next year is going to change strategically how you're going to be designing your blitzes because he's an outstanding blitzing safety.
Inman, your thoughts on next year's room?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of Jay Ward. I'm with you, Sam. And mostly by default, depending on who they bring in, whether that's free agency or the draft. But let's say Harrison Smith does retire, which that's the odds-on thing to happen. Theo Jackson, I think we've gone through that experiment. He ain't it. We got Metellus, who you want to be able to use his position flexibility and maximize his skill set by moving him around. You need 1, if not 2 other safeties. I think Jay Ward is just the kind of obvious choice to start getting a lot more snaps and at least get a fair shake at a starting safety job in training camp. Will it end up, panning out? I don't know, but I definitely think he's the odds-on favorite. I think next year to be the guy next to Josh Metellus. Again, I think you got to draft somebody, whether that's an early, 2nd, 3rd round pick or a late round guy. I think you got to also sign somebody as well to beef up that room and just get some more warm bodies in there. But I think Jay Ward right now is definitely an odds-on favorite to be a starting safety next year. Whether that's in 2 safety alignments or 3 safety alignments, remains to be seen.
Sign 1, draft 1, and you've got 5 in the room. Keep 4. Let them battle it out. I'm not even though Smith is likely gone, I'm not tripping. I don't know why. I'm not tripping about like what next year holds at safety. I think it's because of how they use them mostly. I mean, they're dropping
I'm
into
so
zones.
concerned. That's such a weird take, Sam. I'm so concerned.
There's a
They don't
lot
have-
of free agents that could assuage your concerns.
That's fair.
Yeah, Kyle Duggar, he's 30, but these safeties age pretty well. He's a known Flores guy. Cam Curl out there, Alohi Gilman out there.
Okay, well, Gilman and Curlin. My concern right now is that there's nobody that you can have play single high, period. Right, unless you're really confident about Jay Ward, right? So, and like with the top,
Which is
safety
not
in
how
the-
they would want to use him.
right? Which, like, my understanding was that the top safety in the draft is, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, Caleb Downs, right? And he's
Caleb
not that guy.
Downs. Yep. Ohio
Yeah, and
State,
he's not that guy either, right?
No.
And Kyle Duggar is not that guy. But I would love to add Kyle. Don't get me wrong, but like that can't be the only solution, right? So yeah, and Alohi Gilman would make a ton of sense there, then, right? And Cam Curl can kind of do it a little bit. But yeah, like you need somebody who can defend deep. That's like the scheme.
Yeah,
So-
there's three, and we'll get into this more during draft months, but there's three tempting safeties depending on who's on the board at what do they have? What pick? 48, 49, 48, something like that. The Oregon kid, the Toledo kid, and the LSU kid, AJ Halsey.
McNeil
All three of
Warren?
those guys can play. Yes, all three of those guys can play a deep center field safety, but also give you a lot of flexibility as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if two of those three were gone by then. Maybe you only have one sitting on the board, maybe none for that matter. But there is going to be some intriguing options, I think, for the Vikings in the second round.
Well, one of the wide left writers wrote a piece on McNeil Warren, which is A, why I know his name, and B, why I know he's going to be good. So hopefully the Vikings grab that guy.
Done deal.
I just had a thought about this where, hey, there's all these safeties and they're all kind of older. And, oh, wow, that makes them cheaper. That's such a Kwesi. Oh, no.
Yeah, some
And
people were saying in the draft, like,
The
about
chat
the,
had a similar
the-
idea, too. It's like,
yeah,
an injured
the
player?
center-
Nope, that doesn't
Yeah.
matter anymore. I got to, like,
Yeah, the
untrain
center
my
with
brain.
the ACL, it's like, that sounds like a Kwesi.
Yeah.
Wait.
Right.
We all have to untrain our brains to stop looking for these like bargain bin things because we genuinely have no idea what
What
their
are Rob
priorities will
Brzezinski's
be.
free agency tendencies?
Yeah, like what do they prioritize? What do they like to do? What's the style they like to get? Not necessarily like we know Flores's style that he was going to want versatility in his safety, but like how are they going to look for deals?
I think that makes that really extremely very likely.
I really think it's just going to be KOC and Flores saying,
Like
these
that
are the
guy?
two or three
Like that
guys
guy?
that
Give me
I
my
want.
guys.
Option A,
Give me
B,
that
C.
guy.
Go get your guys, and then Brzezinski saying, okay, here's what I can realistically make work. So pick and choose as far as the cap goes.
Vikings hired 4 members of the coaching staff. If you have a big opinion on any of them, same as the GM, I probably won't believe you, but go for it, please. Make my day. Frank Smith, is the new assistant head coach. He has a strong O-line background, former OC for Mike McDaniel. Keith Carter is your new OL coach, elevated from assistant O-line coach. He was the O-line coach for the Titans from 2018 to 22, so at least he's done the job. Ryan Nielsen, defensive line coach. He's been a DC before, multiple places. Gerald
Finalist
Alexander
with Flores for the Vikings DC job in 23.
Yes, correct.
Good call.
Because of that, I was like, wait, is he a former Vikings coach? No, not
No.
quite. And then Gerald Alexander, DB, is kind of a lateral move. He's done that around the league. Anyone want to weigh in? Like or don't like?
I don't know that much about the offensive line coach, and I don't know that much about the DB's coach. Ryan Nielsen had been a hot name in the defensive coordinator search back when, and I remember when he was hired by the Falcons. They were talking about his history of with the Saints. He was the defensive line coach for the Saints, right? His history of like developing those guys, and so that's kind of interesting. My understanding of the way that the Saints ran that defensive line group while he was there was not quite the same as we're used to seeing in Minnesota. A lot of run first type stuff, and by that I mean not shooting gaps, but like kind of holding the gaps a little bit. Again, this is just like my recollection. I could be a little bit wrong about a lot of this, but there was a lot of development of a lot of defensive linemen there, and it sounds like he has got a really strong reputation there. As for Frank Smith, my understanding is that he was heavily involved in run design in Miami, and as many things that went wrong in Miami, especially over the last couple of years, I will say the run design has been actually quite good.
Yeah, getting Mike McDaniel's run game guy seems cool.
Had a couple of
so-
top 5 rushing attacks in yards per attempt. Not bad.
Yeah, and while I think it would be fair to be like, well, hey, Devon Achane is like talented, like, shouldn't that be the reason? It's not, I don't think it's just that, especially when you've got like Raheem Mostert doing all this kind of like a bunch of different running backs were able to effectively produce there. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good move. Again, I don't know anything about Gerald Alexander. I don't know anything about, was his name Keith
Carter.
Keith Carter.
It's super
yeah.
interesting that they promoted from within on the O-line. And I think that
I thought so.
Chris Cooper's departure is not like a clean firing. It was contract expired, and now they promoted the guy. Like it shows a level of satisfaction with the O-line coaching that I think a lot of fans would disagree with. It doesn't feel like it was about, God, Justin School was so bad, we fired the O-line coach. Like, no, you promoted the other guy in that room.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. So this guy was with the Titans for the prime of Derrick Henry's run. Let's see who they drafted and developed around.
I know who I'm attributing Derrick Henry's run success to, though.
Hey, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here. So they drafted nobody in 18, Nate Davis in 19. I don't think
Nate Davis was a
that
prime I can fix him kind of offensive line. Can you remember, Luke? He did the craziest stance. He was like squatting like a frog back at, where was he? Charlotte? He was at the Charlotte 49ers in college.
Was it Charlotte?
It was something like that. It was like maybe like East Carolina or like one of like an East Coast school, something like that. In like South Carolina, North Carolina, somewhere around there.
Yeah, North Carolina. Good call.
Yeah. But he like squatted, and so you had to fix his stance coming out. He actually turned out to be kind of okay, if I recall correctly.
He was okay.
Sorry,
yeah, round 3. Yeah, third round guy. Yeah.
What? Okay, and then they drafted Isaiah Wilson in the first round, and then remind me of his story. He got suspended.
Yeah, there was like a moving violation, something with driving. I believe there were rumors about other elements involved. He retired early. I believe he released a rap album, but he never played, which is the important element here.
Right.
Yeah, one season. One season coming out.
Dylan Radins in the second round. We're really in the
Dakota State.
You know I hate that pick.
North Dakota State.
Doesn't look like a lot came of that. So as you can see,
as you would expect from North Dakota State offensive lineman.
The time with the Titans.
Historically not true. I don't know what I'm saying.
Fizzled a bit. Yeah, correct, Jack Payton. May not have been the coach's fault on Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah.
That's our show for today. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Spinman in the big chair. I'll be on a plane. Check out Wide Left, Reef Hassan's publication. Check out Locked on Vikings with Luke Braun. Check out the postcasts with Luke Inman after every Wolves game. Wolves red hot again. They're back, baby. And I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.